and open the eyes of our minds that we may comprehend the message of your gospel. Instill in us also deep respect for your blessed commandments, so that having conquered sinful desires, we may pursue a spiritual life, thinking and doing all those things that are pleasing to you. For you, Christ our Lord, are the light of our souls and bodies, and to you we give glory, together with your Father, who is without beginning, in your all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and forevermore. Amen. Let me see it. So here's my idea, then I'll go to Bible study. So, I shouldn't say it's my idea. Someone actually said, suggested that I do this. They said, why don't you host a retreat for South Florida on a cruise ship? There are little cruise ships that go out to the Bahamas, and, like the Carnival and some other ones. And there's a couple of Greek tour people that do that. So why don't you hook up with one of those and then publicize it in like the Orthodox Observer and places in Florida and outside of Florida, and say, listen, why don't you spend a weekend in Florida, come here, get on a cruise, takes you around, and in the meantime, in the evenings, I can do a Bible study every single one of those evenings. So, and then you could do services as well. Then on our Sunday, we would do liturgy on the boat. Come to port. Yes, I said, you got something there. That's pretty good. Yeah, and we can make money for the church at the same time. We'll host it on behalf of the Annunciation Church. So think that through. That might be an interesting. Yeah. Next thing I know, the other churches will do it and they'll be in competition with us. So don't tell anybody. Okay, so we're going to study. So my sermon will tie in a little bit. The book of Daniel, which according in the Orthodox Study Bible, it is the last book of the Old Testament. So right before, it's the way to find it. So before you go to Matthew, and then it's the book right before Matthew. It's the last book of the Old Testament. Yeah. 1249 is what we're going to be studying. But we're going to study the 5th chapter. But I'm a broken record when I tell you that anytime you study Scripture, you need to do something. What is it? What is the? Well, yeah, of course, pray. But when you're going to study something, you want to get into it, you must do something first. As you're studying a chapter or a verse, context. Yes, context. You have to study, you have to understand how it fits. You can't just pull it out and say, we're going to study the 5th chapter of Daniel. No, you have to understand what came before and what comes after. Yeah, no good. Right. So we call that scopos, the scope. What is the scope of this chapter? Why is it there? And why is it the last book of the Old Testament in the Orthodox Study Bible? In most Bibles, Micah is the last book, the prophet Micah. The Orthodox Church, it's Daniel, and there are pieces of Daniel that are actually apocryphal, pieces of apocryphal books. That's for another time. So the scopos here is very important. So we're studying the 5th chapter of Daniel. If you need a Bible, if you don't have one, to sum up here. You got, everybody's got one? Okay, good. So it's page 1249. It is the book right before. Do you need one? Come on. Page 1249. So it's the book before Matthew, the Gospel of St. Matthew. So we're making a transition now, which is important. We're going from the Old Testament to the New Testament, really close. So as we're studying the scope, the scopos, the context, that's important. That's important to understand that. But there's something else that comes before that. When you hear of Daniel, when you think of Daniel, what do you think of right away? The lion's den. What else? The 3 youths, where? In the fire. Okay. What else? Yeah, those guys that you can't. Those are the 3 youths that were thrown in the fire. What else? The exile of Babylon. It's important. Well, the dreams. Very good. Dreams. So he was among other things, he could understand the dreams, and he could understand the dreams as they foretold the future. That this is important as context. So in order to understand chapter 5, there's a huge transition that takes place, and it's found at the end of chapter 4. So go to chapter 4, where it says the king is restored. You see it? So I'm going to read from there, and then I'm going to annotate as we go into chapter 5. At the end of the time, who? Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? And you know Nebuchadnezzar, what did he do about himself?
Build statues.
Yeah, they built a big statue. Because he considered himself to be God. And that got him into trouble. Right? What happened to Nebuchadnezzar? He became mad. He became mad because he made himself God. God wanted to humble him. This is important, to humble him. Turned him into an animal. That's one of the reasons, let me have a quick parenthesis, one of the reasons why in Asian, Near Eastern people, I should say, Greeks especially, I can speak from my own experience. My father, whenever I would do something really bad, he says, don't be a gaiduri. That's really bad when someone says that to you, right? Don't be a donkey. Don't be an ass, really. That's what they say that, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But we're not the only ones. Other Near Eastern people say the same thing. They will refer to you as an animal. Well, where did they get that? They get that from the book of Daniel. They stole it from the book of Daniel. We're going to see it now. Because Nebuchadnezzar wanted himself to be God. He created this statue. God says, I'm going to bring you down. Daniel told him what was going to happen to his empire. And so he became crazy. And what did he do? When he was crazy, where did he go? He went in the wilderness. He went out into the dasi, the fields, and he was hanging out with the donkeys. He was hanging out with the other donkeys and eating the food, the grass. And so think about this now. His wife, the people of his empire. Here's this guy who said he's God. Now they're saying, where's the king? Oh yeah, well he's down. See him down there with the donkeys. What? What's he doing? He's on his hands and knees and he's eating like the donkeys. You see, so that's why we hear Near Eastern people say, if you act in a way that's against God, you are an ass. You're becoming a donkey. They may not realize that's where it came from, but that's where it came from. It's an Old Testament kind of a fable, not a fable, that's not the word I want to use. There's a moral to the story, I guess. That's what it is. Don't be an animal. Because arrogance is all you care about is yourself, and so only animals do that. Human beings are able to say, I'm going to sacrifice myself for somebody else. See? They had what? No, they didn't know. Yeah, they didn't realize they have understanding. Okay? So he's restored. So he was a great king at one point. He believed in God. He made himself God because he began to think that he did it all. He builds a statue of himself. God brings him back down. He's an animal. And now he comes back to himself. How does that happen? At the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me. There's that word synesy that Maro just mentioned. My understanding, not in a sense of knowledge understanding, in a sense of comprehension of life. I became wise, in other words. It returned to me, which means he had it before. He just lost it. Then I blessed the Most High and praised and glorified him who lives forever. For his authority is an eternal authority, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are counted as nothing, and he, capital H, does according to his will with the army of heaven and with the habitation of earth. No one can resist his hand. This is important. Or say to him, what are you doing? Now let me open up a parenthesis. The hand and the finger of God is important in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. As a matter of fact, when Jesus healed the demoniac and the Pharisees came to him and said, in whose authority are you doing this? And then they said, well, you're doing it in the name of Satan, remember? Okay? He says, no, he says, I do it with the finger of God. Go back and take a good look there. We jump over things because, I know the story, and we fail to focus on the words that he's using. He says, no, he says, I do this through the finger of God. David in the Psalms, when he talks about, I look at the heavens and I see what the finger of God has created. He says, same thing here. You see it in a number of places in the Old Testament. You see the writing of the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments were written by what? The finger of God. So the finger of God is the hand of God. And that's where you see Michelangelo if you go to Sistine Chapel and you see, and the fingers are coming together, and it's a finger. Well, that's why. He knew the Old Testament well. And he says the finger of the Old Testament of God is reaching towards the finger of Adam and Eve. The finger of the New Testament is reaching towards Adam and Eve. But the beauty of the Michelangelo, I've actually seen it. I don't know if you've ever been there to take a look at it. God is reaching like this, and Adam and Eve is like this. Yeah, he's barely there. He doesn't even lift his hand. So it's almost as though the initiative to save Adam and Eve is God's, not human beings. Beautiful theology. That's true. But anyway, that's for another time. So you cannot ask what the hand is doing. At that time, my understanding restored to me. So when does synesy, when does understanding of who God, when do we stop becoming a donkey and become a human being? Is when we acknowledge everything that he just said. God is in control. He is sovereign. He does what he wants. No one can question him. He has this, that, on and on and on and on and on. He finally figured it out. And all of a sudden said, at that time, my understanding returned to me. And I came again into the honor of my kingdom. My appearance was also restored. Now this is important again. We're seeing here in the end of the Old Testament these images of how the image of man, humanity, is restored from being an animal to being back into the image of God. How is it? By having synesy, by having the understanding of who he really is, and getting understanding of this. Is this making any sense? So this is really important, this last paragraph. I came again into the honor of my kingdom. My appearance was also restored, and my rulers and nobles asked for me. They asked for me. The wise people came to me. I became strong again in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added to me. Now, therefore, I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt beyond measure, and glorify the King of heaven, because all his works are true, his paths are just, and he is able to humble those who walk in arrogance. This is the context of the next chapter. Because who are we going to be talking about in the next chapter? Belshazzar. Who is Belshazzar? The grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Do we learn from other people's mistakes? No. Unfortunately. Right? No matter what our parents told us, no matter what you say to your children, they're going to do their own deal until they what? Learn on their own. And unfortunately, they learn on the hard way. And they'll come back to us sometimes, and they'll come back to us, and what will they say? You were right. You were right. Okay. This is what's happening here. Nebuchadnezzar figured it out. He became grand again, better than he was before, because he recognized who God is and who he is. He had a son, and they're jumping history here because the Old Testament is not interested in chronology; it's interested in theology. So you cannot read the Bible as a history book. That's because it's not the way it's written. So what we don't get here are what happened to Nebuchadnezzar's sons in order to get to Belshazzar. But you can study history. If you really want to get into the Bible study, do it on your own, and you're going to see that there were a number of children, sons, Not too many, but I think there was 3 of them. And they all screwed up. They got killed. They tried to become this and tried to become that, and they were destroyed by coups inside their own empire. So all of a sudden, now here comes Belshazzar. Okay, so you with me so far? Okay. So Belshazzar the king made a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles, and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. Now, we can't jump too quickly. So think about a place. Have you ever been to a party with 1,000 people? A banquet with 1,000 people? Have you? At your house? Oh, I thought you said your house. I have been to a number of them. I was actually at a party last night. It was a wedding that I went to. It wasn't a Greek that got married. At the Breakers Hotel in the Grand Banquet. So there had to have been close to 1,000. I would say close to 1,000 people there. It was just, and don't get me wrong, except for me, it was kind of like the who's who of Palm Beach. Okay, I was like telling Heidi, "What are we doing here?" Yeah. So we were there, black tie, very, very swanky, and all it was just drink and wine and food and you name it, it was there. Open bar for 1,000 people. Fantastic. Yeah, you should have been there. Wines. And so I'm sitting back, which I'd like to do periodically. I like to get kind of, after I do my deal, and I can't take it anymore, I'll get back and I'll just kind of view around, just kind of see what's going on. And I was doing this with my wife, with Heidi. And I said, oh my God, I said, look at the way people are dressed. Especially the women. The men basically were wearing, tuxes, okay? But what was interesting is the majority of men wearing tuxes there didn't have socks on. That's a new thing in no socks, no calzas. Yeah, but in black tie? I've never seen it in black tie. Well, yeah, that's one of the things we saw. And then we saw some other things too among the men, but mostly the men almost looked like penguins. They all looked the same. We all looked the same. The women, however, I thought I was in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, and some of them were there. Stallone was supposed to be there. Sylvester Stallone was supposed to be there. Taylor Swift was supposed to be there. Yeah, it was supposed to be some very interesting people. And there were some interesting people there. So it looked to me, it felt like, don't get me wrong when I say this, an orgy was going to take place. And that's when I said, it's time for us to get out of here. And we left. And we left. Yeah, and I don't want to judge, but it looked gluttonous. You know what I mean? But not only food-wise, it was almost as though any appetite you want. That's where I'm going with this. And it was total ego. Total ego. Who has the greatest diamond ring? Who has the most expensive car? Who has the most expensive clothing? It was just on and on and on and on and on. And I couldn't help but think of this. So I'm sharing that with you to give you the idea that here's this young, well, he's not that young at this point, but here's the king, grandson, and he's bringing 1,000 people into his palace for a banquet. Back in those days. Now, what you may not recognize is that in those days, banquets, women were not allowed. No. In this case, however, take a good look. While he tasted the wine, Belshazzar commanded to bring in the gold and silver vessels which Nebuchadnezzar, his father is kind of like, like our father Abraham, we say. Not my literal father, but my ancestor, commanded to bring in the gold and the silver vessels which Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had brought from the temple in Jerusalem, so the king, meaning Belshazzar, his nobles, his concubines, and his wives might drink from them. I'll talk in this in a minute. Thus, the gold and the silver vessels which he had brought from the temple of God, notice the emphasis here, where they came from, in Jerusalem were brought in, and the king his nobles, and it really should be, and their concubines. In other words, they brought their girlfriends, their wives, 1,000 people. They had been drinking so much wine, they've been having carousing so badly that Belshazzar says, you know what? Why don't you bring in now the gold and the silver goblets which my grandfather took from the temple of Jerusalem, and he has them in some storage room. So we're going to take this debauchery to a whole other level. Yeah, wow, I was right. That's why I don't want you to lose what's going on here. Thus, the gold and the silver vessels which he had brought from the temple of God in Jerusalem were brought in, and the king, his nobles, his concubines, and his wives drank from them. They drank wine and praised what? The gods made of gold, silver, copper, iron, wood, and stones. Wow. That's like saying, some governor comes here, we invite him for a banquet someplace, and where he's having such a good time, he goes, and he sends his people into the church here. He says, bring me the chalices so that we can drink from them, and we'll toast to the gods of whatever. So it goes from ego to self-indulgence to finally, I'm going to take what belongs to God and God alone, and I'm going to worship myself, not the God to whom those things belong. Blasphemy, ultimately. Desecration, blasphemy, I mean, all of those things. But I want you to see the progression here. This is very important. In the same hour, meaning when you see that in the Old Testament, it actually means right away that happened. Connected the two. The fingers of a man's hand came forth and wrote opposite the lamp on the plaster of the wall in the king's house. And the king saw the knuckles of the hand that wrote. Then the appearance of the king changed, and his thoughts troubled him greatly. Here it is. The joints of his hips were loosened, and his knees knocked against each other. Now, if you do a little bit of a Bible study there of the Hebrew words, it actually means that he fell over, almost like his grandfather. Okay, he had no strength anymore. His face changed. He's becoming deformed based on what he was doing and what the hand writing on the wall. I'm sure if we were doing liturgy here or something, and all of a sudden someone says, "Oh, what's going on over there?" and you see the apparition of a hand starts writing on the wall, I think a lot of people would turn white. But here's a guy who thinks, and his people and his nobles, that they are, at the breakers. So the king cried aloud to bring in the magicians, the Chaldeans, and the diviners. He spoke to the wise men of Babylon, saying, "Whoever reads this writing and makes known its interpretation to me, he shall be clothed with purple. He will wear a gold chain around his neck. He shall also be third ruler in my kingdom." Now, I can't tell you how many people were wearing gold necklaces and things on the last night, at the breakers, and porphyra, purples. And I'm not trying to, again, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to judge them. I'm just trying to make a contemporary connection here, as much as I can. He did not learn, and if you had read the first 3 and 4 chapters of the book of Daniel, you would realize that that's the mistake that his grandfather was making. That whenever he wanted wisdom, whenever he wanted counsel, he would go to these people. He would go to everyone except to the person that actually put him in that position, God. He wouldn't go to Daniel. He would go to these people first. And when these people couldn't give him what is necessary, then he went to Daniel. He learned, Nebuchadnezzar learned, finally the hard way. And here we are now, his grandson, doing the exact same thing. Now, what is the theological truth in that? Let's just stop there because I don't want you to miss an important teaching. You have enough information to answer that. What is the Mark, go ahead.
People don't want to hear what they're supposed to do. They want to hear what makes them happy.
Yes, that's there. But that's more, give me I'm looking for the theological truth there. Although that's true, I could probably say that in a secular setting and people would agree with what you just said. So it's not theological, it's more, that's a practical statement. People want to hear what they want to hear, they don't want to hear. Yes. But don't give me the story, give me the theological truth there about humanity, I guess.
People go to God last instead of first.
And why? You're getting there. You're getting there.
Because they don't prioritize God at the level they should be. Because they're not living like God.
No, you're not there. Now you're moving away. Why? Go back further. You're almost there. You're giving me the characteristics. You're not giving me the disease. What about it? What about Adam and Eve? What does St. Paul say about humanity? Yes. We are sinful at the core, and man's heart has enmity. I've always have a problem is to figure another word for that. We have disgust to God. We don't want Him. We don't. We reject Him. We are sinful. We cannot save ourselves. We may think we can. We cannot. Cannot. So because of that, all human beings are born sinful. This whole business that you hear, which is so wrong theologically, is that, oh, it's a baby. It's what's the word? Innocent. No. Completely the opposite. Completely the opposite. We are born, St. Paul says, sinful. And we need Jesus Christ for redemption. It is not that we were born good and we somehow got bad because we did bad things. No, our nature is evil. It's in our nature to say no to God. So therefore, if it was merely a matter of knowledge, don't you think that the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar would be a good person? Now, let me give you the reflection of that. Sometimes people will come and they'll meet me, and they'll come to church, and I'll say, "Oh, are you visiting?" "Oh, no, I'm a member here." "Really?" I say to myself, "I've never seen them. I've been here for a long time." Or they'll come and they'll say, "Oh, when did you become a priest here?" Well, and when I say, "Well, I've been here for 8 years," "Oh, I'm waiting there for this." "Well, I was stationed on the moon for 8 years, and I didn't get a chance to know you were gone." No, so, and then they'll say things like, "Oh yes, I used to be an altar boy with Father Mekris." Or, "My grandfather in Greece was a bishop." Or, "Oh yeah, I have a brother who's a monk." So what are they doing when they do that? What is it? Their pedigree. Let me tell you my soy. I come from, help me with the translation of that. Echisoy. My ancestors, I come from nobility. So therefore, because my father was this or my grandfather, or they might say that, oh yes, well my father is one of the originators of this church. So in my mind it's like, okay, so, but what does that mean? So even if Balthazar said, well, my grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar, was blessed by God, it's still so. The question is, what about you? Have you made the same statement of faith that Nebuchadnezzar, your grandfather, made? Do you believe that God is sovereign? Do you believe that He's the creator? Do you believe that He does all these things? Do you bow the knee to Jesus as your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar does? Did you learn from his mistake? We don't. We don't, my friends. We as, again, I can only talk about Greeks, but I'm sure it translates well or is applicable to others. We kind of live out our lives through our children, and that's a danger. If your children are really successful, the parent loves to say, oh yes, my son, the doctor, or the attorney, or the whatever it is, Oh yes, he's he walked on the moon, my son, yes. But when they do something bad and they get into trouble, and I tell people, you cannot take the praise and take the credit when your children do well, as you cannot take the credit or the blame if they do poorly. You can only do what you can, and then they're on their own. They you reach a point of adulthood, and now you have to make a decision. You have to accept Jesus Christ. You have to bend the knee. You have to do all those things. You cannot rely on me just because I'm this or that. Does it make any sense? There's a good sermon I heard many, many, many years ago. And the name of the sermon, I'll never forget it. It was, God has no grandchildren. Right? He only has sons and daughters. No grandchildren. In other words, just because you are the son of one of His sons, Jesus' sons, does not make you a grandchild of God. You have to have a personal relationship with Him. You cannot bypass that and say, well, just because my parents were religious, I get the credit through them. If you do that, theologically you're incorrect. You must begin, as St. Paul says, all have sinned, he says. All, no, not one, is without sin. No, not one. And that's why we say the difference between us and the Catholic Church is we say that the Theotokos, the Mother of God, was born sinful, like everybody else. And she needed her Son, Jesus Christ, to be saved. Many in the Catholic Church, not all, many in the Catholic Church believe in the Immaculate Conception, where Mary was born without sin. St. Paul says, no, not one, you see. So we have to be very careful that we recognize that if our children are born sinful, even as infants, there is an importance for us to introduce them, like Nebuchadnezzar would his grandson, to Jesus Christ and to teach him or her these things. Is this making some sense to you? So this is the context of the story. That's why it's there. It's there to tell us, the grandchildren, we are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We say it every time we do liturgy. We are the family of Israel. We are the new Israel. We are the family of all those. Have we learned the lessons of the past? Each and every one of us has to do it. So he does all of this thing, the writing's on the wall. He goes to the wrong people, which we do all the time, by the way. We have a problem in our life, where do we go? I can't tell you how many times that you've heard me say it. People come to me when they're having marital problems, or they come to the priest when they're having marital problems, the last person. They'll go to the marriage counselor, they'll go to the attorneys, they'll go to their parents, they'll go, maybe not their parents, but they'll go to all these different people, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and finally when it's gone already, then they come to the priest and say, bring us back together. Well, the eggs are broken and they're on the floor, there's nothing I can do at that point. So it's important that we learn. If you do a really careful Bible study, you see that the paragraph I read in chapter 4 and this paragraph here, and you match them up, you're going to see that Nebuchadnezzar, his rulers, his people came to him for advice. Here is the king who made himself God, and he's going to them for advice. So how much of a knowledge person is he if he's got to go to other people for wisdom? And what did they say? He says, whoever reads this shall be a third, blah, blah, blah. But they could not read the writing or make known the interpretation to the king. They couldn't do it, which is very interesting. Now, if you go back to Nebuchadnezzar and you study what happened to him, the exact same thing happened to him. The statue was put up there. He didn't know how to interpret his dreams. Daniel came to him. But before Daniel came to him, Nebuchadnezzar was so arrogant. He said, bring in the nobles, bring in the soothsayers, and if they cannot tell me, I will kill them. So if someone was going to say, interpret this for me or I'm going to kill you, I'd make it up. Okay? But obviously he killed a lot of people, and then Daniel is brought in. So here we go again. How old is... Well, I don't want to jump yet. So Belshazzar the king was greatly troubled, and his appearance changed in him. Thus his nobles were very distressed. Notice it keeps changing. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Then the queen entered the banquet hall and spoke. Now this is a really telling verse. Who's the queen? Not Belshazzar's. So it wasn't. Yeah, it was either Nebuchadnezzar's. In other words, his mother, his grandmother. It's not his wife. It's not his wife. More than likely, it's his grandmother or great grandmother. So this is an older woman who comes in. But notice she wasn't in the banquet. Why not? She what? Either because she knew better. How many parents do you know? You may not know as many as I do. I know a lot of people from Palm Beach who are very upset with the way their children are living their life. And they'll actually say, you know what? At this point, they don't listen to me. Let them do whatever they want to do. But when they get in trouble, they're there to help them. All of a sudden now her grandson, who is a trust fund baby, just he has all this money and this power. He's having a banquet for 1,000 people. This crazy thing happens. He's now changing his facial appearance. He's falling down, and the nobles are upset. They call his grandmother, and his grandmother comes in at that point to help him. O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts trouble you, nor let your countenance change. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the Spirit of God. In the days of your father, see, here we go again, grandfather, vigilance and understanding were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, made him the chief of the enchanters, the soothsayers, the magicians, the Chaldeans, and the divinizers. Notice here, she's saying, you go to these people. There was a man that your grandfather went to, and he was in charge of all those people. And you're going to them and not to him? Go to him. He's the person you need to go to. Now, what do I like about this? Is there something... the word, not nostalgic, something reminiscent of a story in the New Testament with Jesus here? The verse is, there is a man. I want you to suffer a little bit. No? What about it? There's a miracle story. I want you to tell me which miracle story it is where you hear there is a man. It's reminiscent of it. Or the woman at the well. The woman at the well, she runs into this town, and what does she say? Come see a man. Come see a man. And here we see the mother, grandmother, whatever it is, there is a man. Where is it? I lost it now. There is a man in your kingdom. In other words, he's here in your kingdom. And you're going to these other people in whom is the Spirit of God. Notice you can tell that she's of a religious nature. In the days of your father. In verse 12, inasmuch as an excellent spirit, discernment, understanding, interpreting dreams, revealing things to be grasped, and explaining difficult sayings were found in Daniel. Now, if you go to the book of Isaiah, prophecy of Isaiah, where he talks about the Messiah, when he talks about and he gives the characteristics of the Messiah, they match up with this. That there will come a man, he will be the Messiah, and he will have the spirit of this, the spirit of that, understanding, discernment, an excellent spirit, all these things, and the Spirit of God is in him. So the reason I believe, and all theologians believe, in my opinion, that the reason why Daniel is here, the reason why this chapter is so important, the reason why this story is so critical, is that because it points to Jesus Christ. He's the one in the kingdom, it's his kingdom that we're living in. We're making a debauchery of it. We're losing our identity. We're losing our morphe. We're losing who we are. We're becoming animals. And there's a guy in our own kingdom, if we go to him, he can fix us. And we don't want to do it. We want to be the God of God. Do you see how it really preaches these stories? If you put them in their proper place. Whom the king named, well, where am I? To be grasped. Difficult were found in Daniel. Whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now therefore let him be summoned, and he will tell you its interpretation. So what does he do? He still is arrogant. Watch. Then Daniel was led in before the king, and the king said to Daniel, Are you the Daniel? Are you the guy? Are you the Daniel from the children of the captives of Judea? Notice what he's doing. He's diminishing him. He just heard from his grandmother, he was made by Nebuchadnezzar, the chief of all of the people that you went to for wisdom. He comes in to help you, and right away you have to tell him that I know who you are. You're merely a slave back here, one of the children of the Chaldeans that we conquered. Whom my father the king brought here? I've heard of you, that the Spirit of God is in you, and vigilance, understanding. Notice again, see the characteristics? And excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the magicians and diviners came before me to read this writing and make known its interpretation, but they could not reveal it to me. Then I heard about you, that you are able to interpret matters requiring a judgment. Now therefore, here comes, if you can read the writing and make known its interpretation to me, what's he going to do? It's going to pay him. I will clothe you in purple. You'll get a gold chain around your neck, and you shall be the third ruler in my kingdom. Well, he already had that. He already had that. But notice he's bribing him. He's bribing him. Fortunately, Daniel is like, I don't need that stuff. You can keep it. I don't. By the way, how old is Daniel at this point? That's right. At least 80. At least 80. He was a younger man with Nebuchadnezzar. At this point, almost all scholars say that he was 80 plus. One scholar humorously said that he was in the equivalent of a nursing home at the time. Gray hair, if he had hair, gray hair, hanging out in the nursing home, and all of a sudden he gets a call saying, hey, the king needs you. They're in the same situation again. Oh, here we go again. So he goes in, he's an older guy, wise guy, and here's this younger guy saying, oh, you're the slave here? Oh, yeah. I said, if you do this, I'll give you a purple robe and some chains and, So typical. So typical. I can't, again, I don't want you to think I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about clergy in general. Do you know how many times we get bribed like this? You have no idea. You have no idea. I had one person come in my office once and put $10,000 in an envelope right in front of me if I would do something for him. I threw him out of my office and he pulled a gun on me. Because who do you think you are? He said, who do you think you are? No, not here. I would take it here and give it to him and fix the hall with it. No, it was not here. It was not here. And other things, but I'm just giving you, and we all have those experiences as clergy. Trust me, and worse than that. And it's typically people who think that they are in a higher state, and that we, the church, is kind of like the last resort. And just like, if this is the way I deal with business people, well, this is the way I'm going to deal with the church too. It worked here, how come it doesn't work here? Same thing. Why? Because the heart of man is sinful. We have disgust for the things of God. We push it away. No, me, I'm going to do it. I'm sorry for being so strong here, but this chapter is the real deal. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself." I love that. Almost stick it. That's basically what he's telling him. "And give the privilege of your house to another." I don't want your house, you see. I want to dwell in the house of God. You take your things. I love this. This is one of my favorite chapters in the Old Testament. "Give the privilege of your house to another. But I will read the writing for the king and make known its interpretation to you." Now here it comes. This is great. "O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father." Now what he's doing is he's going to tell the story of his grandfather. God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a kingdom, majesty, honor, and glory. God gave it to him. So because of the majesty he gave him, all the peoples, the tribes, the languages trembled and feared before him. Whomever he wished, he put to death. Whomever he wished to afflict, whoever he wished, he exalted. And whomever he wished, he humbled. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened with arrogance, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and his honor was taken from him. Then he was driven from men. His heart, here it comes, see? The heart of man. His heart was made like that of the wild animals, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him grass like an ox, and his body was covered with the dew of the heavens, until he came to know that the Most High God rules over the kingdom of men and will give it to whomever he will. But you, in other words, he's letting them have it. But you, Belteshazzar, have not humbled your heart. Although you knew all this, here it is. That's the beauty of it. I love that line. It speaks to me, and I'm sure it speaks to each and every one of you. We know what we need to do, but we choose, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. St. Paul says it. I don't think anyone here would say that they're more spiritual than St. Paul. St. Paul said, why is it that I know what I need to do, but I don't do what I know what I should do? And then he goes on to say, because the heart of man is sinful. Where am I? I lost myself. 23. Sorry, here, 22, 23. Nevertheless, you lifted yourself up against the Lord, God of heaven, and brought the vessels of his house before you. You, notice how many times he'll say you, your nobles, your concubines, and your wives drank wine from them and praised the gods of gold and silver, copper, iron, wood, and stones. By the way, that's what Nebuchadnezzar wanted. He built the trophy of himself that way. Which do not see, this is great. In other words, you want to make them gods? They do not see, nor do they hear, nor know. But you have not glorified the God who holds your breath in his hands and knows all your ways. Therefore, because of arrogance, the finger of the hand was sent by him, and he ordered this writing. So this is the writing he ordered. Mene, tekel, aparizan. I can't even pronounce it. It's important, is what does it mean. Now this is the interpretation of each word. Mene, God has measured your kingdom and finished it. In other words, he weighed it and it's not good enough. Tekel, he weighed you on the scales, but you were found lacking. Upharsin, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Let me stop there for a second. So, you have to understand the context now. We have the context of Belshazzar within the story. Now, what is the context of the party of 1,000 people? And why did he give it? Well, he gave the party because he was so arrogant. His entire city, the empire, the city where he was surrounded by the Persians. And they were trying to take it over. But Nebuchadnezzar was smart enough, and he says, I'm going to build a city with fantastic walls, and there's going to be water coming in from cisterns going underneath. And no one will be able to get us. We're going to have our own food, because he had lands inside so we can feed ourselves, we drink our own water, and we're protected. There's nothing for us to worry about. Let's have a party of 1,000 people, and we're going to even drink from the cups of the temple, because I am the God of God. Nothing can happen to me. I am all powerful. All right? So what did the Persians do? They're all around. Here's this party of 1,000 people. They're all getting drunk, thinking that they're okay. The Persians realized what was going on with the water, and they diverted the water from outside. And as they diverted the water, he wasn't aware of what was going on. They were in the party drinking wine, okay? Well, when they diverted the water, the cisterns now became walkable. It was mud. And the entire troops of the Persians came through the cisterns, walking in the mud, and came into the city from inside the city while they're having the party. Okay? That's the context of the story. Now watch what happens. So he just said to him what this writing is. Belshazzar gave the command, and they clothed Daniel in purple. No, he didn't want it, but he did anyway. Put a gold chain around his neck, and proclaimed him king to be the third ruler. Claimed him to be the third ruler in the kingdom. Notice how the chapter ends. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was put to death from within his own kingdom. So, what does this ultimately mean? Because we have to come to an end. Oh, almost right on the number. What does this mean? It means that each and every one of us are king or queen of our own kingdom. God has given it to us, just like Adam and Eve. The issue is, do we recognize that everything we have, including our breath, belongs to Him? Or do we think, as we get older, that it's me, my pedigree? I've built, I have a beautiful portfolio of stocks, I have a lot of money, I have insurance policies, I have nice houses, I have my, in Greece, unfortunately in Rome, not only do they have wives, but they have girlfriends, they have everything that they need, they have their own, let's sit, it's like parable of Jesus said, the rich man who said, you know what, I'm just going to build bigger barns and tell my soul, you have everything ready for you, eat, drink, and relax. And what does Jesus say? Fool, this very night, your soul will be taken from you. It's this story, my friends. It's exactly this story. It happens to each and every one of us. In our own little circle, we have a choice. Either we recognize that everything that God has given to us, whether we think it's a little or we think it's a lot or whatever it is, it's what God has given to us. He gave us the talent. He gave us the mind. He gave us the opportunities. He gave us our breath. He. We bend the knee to Him and thank Him for everything we do, and we use it accordingly as He is King. The moment that changes, and we think that everything is okay, the water that God gives us for coming from the underneath, the food that He gives us dries up, and before you know it, we get destroyed from the inside, not from the outside. We kill ourselves, ultimately. We cannot blame Him for the things that happen to us. We are at fault. And that's what's going on in the story. It happened to Nebuchadnezzar. It happened to Belshazzar. It'll happen to you and I if we're not careful. That's why it's there. And of course, what happens in chapter 6, all these people who could not interpret, they get jealous over Daniel. They trick the new king Darius, And before you know it, Daniel finds himself in the lion's den, in the furnace with the 3 children. Do you see how that happens? And it happens all the time. The moment a religious leader tells a person with authority that they are wrong, not because we say that they're wrong, that the scriptures say that they're wrong, and we're trying to help them, they get angry and they want to get rid of us. All the time. Never fails. And no matter where you are, you can be patriarch, archbishop, you can be a deacon, you can whatever it is. The heart of man is evil. It does not want to listen. We know best. And I know this sounded, this whole Bible study, sermonic, but it preaches. Moses? Maximus?
I say very quickly, something I find really beautiful about this passage, we can talk about this another time, is it's an inversion of the pivot. Because you have, if you think about this big party, you have extravagance, and then you have the wise men coming to sort of
Yes,
work,
beautiful.
but they fail.
Very good.
And then you have the opposite, right here, but you have the wise men going to interpret the word.
That's fantastic. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. Never thought of it. It's the reverse. It's the inversion of the nativity.
And at the end, you have the kingdoms being divided, and the opposite, of course, of the kingdoms.
Beautiful. Instead of wine, you see water. It go on and on and on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The clothing is different. Yeah. The message is different. Someone said, again, I wish these things were mine. I just share you what other people have said. My job is to read other people's stuff, and then I share you what they said, in my own way. The banquet room became a courthouse. You follow that? Judgment. And he was measured, he was found wanting. Guilty is charged. Death. So you can, again, this is great. I mean, it's just, you could probably write books on this one chapter. It's great stuff. Thank you. Sure. Like I said, I try to keep it to an hour. And some of us have to run home. I'm going to do it because the golf, it's, Probably Aramaic, yeah. Oh, don't believe whatever Google says. Who knows with Google? Oh my God. Yeah, be careful with Google. Yeah. AI is not always right. No, it's Aramaic. Thank you, everybody.